Hey friends, my name is Jake. Welcome back to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at a knife that I thought I reviewed a long time ago. I think I've had this thing for almost a year, or right around a year, maybe a tiny bit more. I don't remember exactly. It's been a long time, and I found it when I was sorting out my knives for the knife sale that I did a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago. A week ago. Anyhow, this is the Kubey HYDE. It's designed by Colin Masionpierre? Yeah, Masionpierre. Colin Masionpierre. He's an American, now I forget, it's either North or South Carolina is where he's from. He's a graphic designer. He decided to start designing knives. He's done, I think, 6 different knives for Kubey, and I think he's done knives for some other knife companies as well. And the HYDE is, one of the most recent ones, at least from Kubey, and I've got one here. It comes, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different ways. You can either get it with a stonewash blade or a blackwash blade. Now, KubeyKnife.com says there's a sandblasted or bead blasted version. I haven't actually seen those. In the pictures, the ones that say bead blast that I've seen actually have a stonewash finish. So you get stonewash or this blackwash. And when I got this thing a year ago, I think this was one of the only ones, like they only had blackwash in stock. I got it from White Mountain Knives, I believe. Right now, White Mountain Knives only has it in 3 colors. The red handle with either the blackwash or stonewash and another one. But other stores have most of them. I'll have links down below for where you can buy this knife. And it's available in Canada at Blades Canada. And I've got links for Amazon and White Mountain Knives where you get your CCE 10% discount. And some other stores, like international stores, so that you can get it just about anywhere in the world. We've got just under 3 inches on the blade, so if you're allowed to have locking folding knives, you probably, I'm just not that good at this one with the left hand with that front flipper. If you can have locking folder knives, chances are you can have them under 3 inches in the blade length. So this one should be available. Now, I'd like to tell you more about this, but let's go to the tabletop to do that. Please stick around for the full review, including a teardown. I believe it was in late 2022 when this first came out, and now it's early 2024, so it's about a year and a half after it came out. When it first came out, I didn't see any reviews of this on purpose. I don't watch other reviews, but I did hear some people complaining about the price of this thing. Right now, the price of this thing in Canada, it's actually a pretty decent price, $69.99 for one certain color. I forget which color it is. I think it's the green with the blackwash. The rest of them are $72.99. So 73 Canadian dollars for this, which isn't terrible. It's right around on par with the price in the States. Most stores have this around $52.50. Some are a little bit more. Some go up to $70 US for this knife, and $70 US was the original MSRP on this thing. And when I heard some people complaining about the price of this, I don't think they thought about the fact that it's got a designer on here. Now, Kubey doesn't, or at least didn't used to use designers very much at all. They still don't use an awful lot of designers for their knives. They just do their own internal designs. And so, there's some money that's got to go to Colin because he designed each one of these. So the more this sells, the more money Colin gets. It eats into the profitability for Kubey, which makes some sense. But $70 for this knife, that's a bit dear. $52.50, not so bad. It's just not that bad at all. At White Mountain Knives, most of these, well, I think there's 3 different prices at White Mountain Knives, depending on which color you get. And remember, you can save 10% there. So White Mountain Knives or Amazon are the best places to get this if you're in the States. Or AliExpress isn't that bad either, $52.50 there. Knife Global, which is one of the Kubey stores, knifeglobal.com is $56 for most of these. So there you go. I'll leave links down below to make it easy for you to get this. What about this knife? Well, like I said, it's under 3 inches in the blade length. So that's the closest spot on the handle to the tip of the blade, that distance right there. It's just a little bit under 3 inches, not much at all. We've basically got a drop point blade. They put a little swedge down here, a little bit of jimping up here, not much. You've got a decent oval hole there. You've got a high flat grind, and you've got a nice high flat or parallel section here. If you're using a clamp sharpening system to clamp onto it, that works just well. Of course, I put mine in my sharpening system and clamped it on in order to measure the grind angles of this knife. And yeah, it's available with 14C28N stainless steel, which is a good budget stainless steel, and G10 handle scales. Now they're all flat slab G10 handle scales, but there's two lines milled across them. One here behind the pivot pin and one here in front of the pocket clip holes, right and left holes for that. Other than that, it's basically just a flat slab G10 with a chamfered edge and a drop point 14C28N. 70 bucks would be a little pricey for this. Thankfully, you can get it for, you know, $18 less than that right now, or almost 18 bucks less, you know, depending on where you shop and stuff. Yeah, that's okay. Typical for Kubey, they've got their KB on the pivot pin, so that says Kubey, but then it also says Kubey on the knife. Thankfully, they're getting smaller with that over time. You know, like I said, this is about 1.5 years old since this came out, and so it's still, some people really dislike the billboarding. And I'm not totally against knives having a name on the blade, but I don't really like it all that much, and I don't like it on the main bevel. I much prefer it to be somewhere else. So we've got their name on that side, and over here we've got Colin's design logo right here, CM Designs, and right there it says 14C28N. The blade shape, I already talked about that. The handle shape, it's basically a candy bar shape. We've got a little bit of a, you know, curve here where it seems to be coming down a little bit. Gives you a little bit of a guard, you know, so that if you stab into something, that chances are a little bit lower for your hand sliding off, but not an awful lot. It really isn't all that good that way. You don't have much protection is what I'm trying to say if you stab into something. We've got an open liner. So you've got the spacers here, the hourglass shaped spacers. You've got a lanyard hole back here, decent size, nicely chamfered hole. There's skeletonizing in the liners, and I'll take it apart and show you those later. T8 screws, which I like. We've got non-recessed pocket clip holes, so you just have 2 holes there. So it's just one little extra hole on the show side, if you're right-handed or left-handed, whichever, you know, the show side's over there. Pocket clip, those are T6 flush screws. The pocket clips are pretty nice. You can buy spare Kubey pocket clips on those. Let's take out our drivers here. Magnets pulling on everything. The T8's nice snug with that hole. A little bit of play there. That's definitely not got any thread locker in there. That's basically the shape and stuff of it. The pivot. The action's quite good. We got ceramic ball bearings in there in phosphor bronze cages. You can use the end flipper. You can reach over and use it. You can use your thumb and deploy it that way. Not a problem. You can use the hole. Now I've got a little bit of a, it's not a complaint, it's not a beef. I just wish they would have, you know, milled this down a little bit, almost like a finger choil here, just a tiny bit, just milled it down a little bit more, or chamfered the edges of this G10 down a little bit. You know, sometimes they put a groove in on an angle, sort of so that your finger can, your index finger can wrap around it a little bit more. Also, it would give you a little better access to that hole. Now, underneath, doing it this way, that works just fine, you know, to get into that hole, to flick it. I'd like to be able to get my thumb in there a little more easily. Now, you can get your thumb in there and do it. I just wish it was a little bit more so that I could, like, properly flick it with my thumb like you do with thumb studs instead of just from underneath. So I wish there was a little more access to that hole to deploy the blade. But I like this. The jimping's really well done. I don't usually like front flippers or end flippers, and I end up using the hole more and deploy the knife blade that way. That's why I would like that, just to be cut back just a little bit. But lock up, it's right down where you want it to be. Lots of room to wear over, yet fully engaged. No blade play up and down, side to side. Really well done. You've got some bumps on the lock release, so you can get in there and move that over with your thumb. Not a problem to disengage the lock, and then just push up on the spine a little bit. Get your thumb out of the way and close the knife. So I like that. That's well done. Happy with that. And open and closed, it's pretty good. The detent's good. You can hear it. So nicely done. Balance point, it's a little bit further back than I prefer. I would like it to be a little bit further forward, but it's not terrible. Maybe if they could have skeletonized or would have skeletonized it just a little bit more, that would be helpful. Not terrible. The handle grip, the hand feel, pretty good. It feels quite good in the hand. It's a little bit, maybe it's a little bit on the chunky side. We'll go through all the exact measurements later on. It feels a little bit thick, but doesn't feel bad. I wish it had a little more jimping up along the spine. I wish the edge here was a little bit thinner. Felt a little bit thick in my cutting test. It didn't cut as well as I expected it to because the blade shape is really good. It's a basic, nice belly, decent point for piercing. It should slice and cut fairly well. It does okay. It's not bad. It just doesn't do quite as well as I had hoped it would. And I will find out why when we do the grind angle measurements in just a minute or two. Another thing I don't really like about this knife, and it's this part right here. Is that supposed to be a sharpener's choil or a forward choil? If it's supposed to be a sharpener's choil, you see this plunge here. You can see this line right here that it follows this line, which is nice design-wise. And then we've got this line here where the main bevel is. So that transition takes about 1/4 of an inch, maybe not quite 1/4 of an inch, to go from the full thickness to the main bevel thinness there. And then you've got another 1/8 of an inch before the edge starts. They could have, brought that line back sort of parallel with this one so the plunge would come back. So you could get another 1/4 inch of an edge on that. That'd be one way, that'd be nice. Or they could have made the sharpener's choil a forward choil so that you could grip it with your finger in here. And that's often very good, especially if you're a guy who likes to do a little bit of whittling or anything where you've got pressure on your thumb back there and you're doing some harder cutting. You can't really do either one on this knife because you can't play in this area comfortably. This is rounded here, but if you want to grip right there, put the middle of your finger right in the middle of that gripping area so that you get close to the edge. It's okay for a couple little cuts, but any extended cutting, and that starts to get annoying right there. It's not painful. It's just annoying to be grabbing right there. As far as design feature, I don't like that design feature. Everything else I really like about the design elements on this. Well, not everything. I already said I'd like this to be made so you got a little better access to that hole. So I guess there's two things that I'm not super fond of. They're not deal breakers for me. This, I really like a drop point blade. I like 14C28N. The shape of this thing for cutting all that belly is quite nice. The handle is quite comfortable, so I like that. That's quite nice. Pocket clip. Well, the pocket clip is well done. We've got a flat section up here, and we've got a high depth pocket clip. So the knife hides in your pocket really well, holds on well, good retention, and did I pull out the T6 driver before and measure that? I think I did. Maybe I forgot to because I was talking about the other measurements. Come on, get in the hole. Isn't this a T6? Nope, that's a T8. No wonder it's not going to fit in there. This is the T6. There we go. Yeah, that's fairly decent. It's not great, but it's fairly decent for removing those screws if you want to. Because you do have, if you're taking it apart, you're taking out the screw from this side, which means most people would take out the body screw here and then the T6 over here. You could take this screw out with a T8 and then take these two out and take it apart that way and not touch the T6s. T6s tend to strip out more easily than T8s by a fair margin, so there's that. Anyhow, I really like this mechanism in here, and alignment, that's right down the middle as well, just the way I like it. So lots good about this knife. I already mentioned how well it cuts. It's pretty good. it's a pretty decent knife. If you like this basic design, yeah, that's not bad. Not bad at all. Well, I just noticed something after I took it apart. And yeah, this is when I thought I had reviewed it and everything. These have got upgraded ball bearings in it. These are skiff ball bearings. If you've not seen my video about skiff, they're made in the United States. They've got ball bearings and they've got washers. You know, if you just want a phosphor bronze washer, but maybe a little bit thicker, maybe you want to take out ball bearings and use regular washers instead. There are reasons and scenarios where that would be preferred. See, I've had this thing for a while. I really thought I had reviewed it. We've got a captured stop pin and something kind of unique. It's not all that common to have the arc right there. Usually when you've got a captured stop pin, the arc is at the front, and then sometimes they have an open front. So this doesn't have an open front, which I like. I dislike open fronts on those, where those, what's that called? The pathway, the open area for the thumb stud, the stop pin to turn to open and close. That's done well. I like that. And lots of skeletonizing on this side. Of course, this side's got less skeletonizing as you got the lock release, but I wish they would have made, see that hole there? At least another one there. They could have easily done that. That would bring the balance point a tiny bit forward, but that's okay. Not a big deal. Other than that, the construction's pretty simple. We've got a notch way right in there, and we've got a protrusion right there. That's why this cannot go on the other side. I remember that now. Kind of like almost exactly the same way Civivi does it. So you've got a stop pin, once it's in the right spot, that cannot spin, and yet it's a fully round stop pin, which is nice. So you don't have a flat area. That helps it index better, in my opinion. So I like that. And yeah, that's how it's made. These screws are good quality screws. You see a little bit of blue there, but they're not hard to come off at all. And there's no thread locker on the main pivot pin. So I'm going to go search for my other washers. I think I might have them upstairs. I might put it back together with those. Okay, I found the original ones. There's the original ones. I'll put them right next to the skiff ball bearings right there in that picture. You can see the original's got 9 ball bearings in there, and the skiff one's got 11. And I'm going to put the originals back in there. If you want to buy something for the almost any Kubey knife, this is the one you want. That would sit in there just fine if you do it that way. So now I'm going to put this thing back together. I'll put the originals back in there, but I will lube them because these have all been cleaned up and dried off and put away dry. So I'll re-lube it with my Gunny Glide. Then we're going to go over the measurements and my summary, what I think of this thing. Keep watching. So I've put it back together again now, and the action's still pretty good. This is with the original bearings in here. Whoop, I missed it. There we go. Works fine. Measurements. The weight of this knife, 108 grams, 3.81 ounces. The factory sharpness on here, about 205 best. Pretty good. Not great, not bad. It's okay. Part of that is the grind angles. We'll see that in a second or two. The blade length, or the cutting edge length, so tip to the heel of the cutting edge right there is 70 millimeters, 2.76 inches. The blade length tip to the handle right there is 74.2 millimeters, 2.92 inches. So clearly under 3 inches. So it's not right at that border. It's, you know, within a safety margin. So it's easy to measure that it's under 3. The thickness of the blade stock, that is 3.04 millimeters. That's 0.1195. So 12% of an inch thick. That's pretty good. The blade depth this way, it's widest right here at the heel. That is 27.9 millimeters, 1.1 inches. How thick is it? Just behind the edge, behind the apex. So where the black wash starts. If you start at the apex and go back where the black wash starts, that is 0.58 millimeters thick, 23 thousandths of an inch. I wish it was thinner. 23 thousandths of an inch is a bit thick, especially since every time you sharpen a knife, it's going to get thicker back there. And I want it to be thinner, especially for a pocket knife like this. A heavy use, hard use Fixed blade, you know, I might want it this thickness, but pocket knife, I want it thinner. Grind angles. The average grind angle on this side across the length of the blade is 23.7 degrees, not percent, degrees, 23.7 degrees. This side's 25.9 degrees. It started here at 24.2 degrees. By here, it was 22.8 degrees. That's about a third of the way along. And then the rest of it went all the way up to 30.6 degrees. The gradual transition all the way. 7.8 degrees of change on 2 3/4 inches. That's just blatantly bad. That's badly sharpened. This side started at 24.4 degrees, went to 23.3 degrees, and it stayed 23.3 right to the tip. So this side's much better sharpened. Remember, knives are sharpened by hand. If you buy one of these, the grind angles that you get on yours will be different because they're each one done individually. You know, the guy or the gal holds it by hand and slides it across something that's sharpening, either a belt or a wheel, and turns it around and does the other side. And when they do it quickly, you get really wonky angles. Or, you know, this person might be good doing one side and then just sort of all over the place doing the other side. You know, but they've got like, I don't know, half a dozen people doing sharpening at the factory, maybe more. And so yours will very likely be different. Most of my Kubey knives have been better sharpened than this specific one. Don't be scared of this model because of that, though, because hopefully you know how to sharpen knives and you can sharpen it, give it a nice, consistent, same angle all the way across. Going on, handle length from the G10 to the end of the G10 right there, 101.6 millimeters, that's 4 inches, almost on the nose. The grip area, and roughly where my thumbnails are right now, that's about 90 millimeters, 3.5 inches. Depends on how far forward you want to go here. That would be a little bit more. The thickness of the handle scales, not on any of the hardware, just on the G10, 12.97 millimeters, 0.51 of an inch. A lot of guys like it to be under ½ an inch. This one's a little bit chunkier. The handle depth, that's this measurement. Within the grip area, it's widest right up here. That is 27 millimeters, 1.06 inches. And when the knife is closed, the widest spot's back here, 33.2 millimeters, 1.31 inches. And the total length of this knife is about 176 millimeters, 6.93 inches. All right, so what do I think of this knife? Do I like it? Would I buy it again? If I didn't have this, but I knew what I knew about it, would I buy it again? Maybe. I really like it. It carries well. I don't mind that it's a tiny bit thick because it's not really super heavy. It's a little bit, you know, on the chunky side. They could have skeletonized a little bit more. They could have made this edge a little bit thinner. And, you know, I'd probably get a blackwash one. I mean, a stonewash one instead of a blackwash one because I like stonewash better. But, you know, maybe that bright blue, I think, is it available with the stonewash or is the bright blue only available with black? I don't remember. Anyhow, you know, it's not a bad knife. I just think that Colin could have done a little bit different stuff with the design work, especially making it a little bit more accessible to get at that hole. And by taking off some of the G10, by shaving it away on an angle there on either side, just a little bit, that would, you know, lighten it a tiny bit and it would give a little bit better access to that hole. That would be nice, but lockup's good, action's good, alignment's good when it's closed. It's a decent knife. Badging, yeah. Keep making it smaller, Kubey. Keep making it. Excuse me, I had to cough there. Kubey, keep making it smaller and just either get rid of this completely because you got your logo here, or a logo, not the full logo. You got your KB there. You know, people will know that it's a Kubey knife because of that KB. And those that don't know, they'll look it up and they'll figure it out. Or just make it a fair bit smaller, like half that size. And, you know, even his logo, half that size. The steel on there, I like that. Yeah. Pocket clip is decent, and I like that it goes both ways. Good size lanyard hole. Decent knife. By the way, reverse grip is comfortable. Even, you know, the pull grip and a decent knife. Thank you to my supporters. Thank you, you guys who send me a couple bucks every month. I appreciate it an awful lot. If you want to join my support crew, you can go to patreon.com/CCE or click on the join button down below the video and you can support the channel. And I think there's going to be a thank you button or something somewhere, maybe. I think I've enabled that on YouTube. So if you want to help out, I appreciate it an awful lot. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.